All right. Hey, welcome to the Go for CEO channel. Once again, another special guest, a local gentleman, somewhere where my daughter went to, both my daughters, my oldest one, 9 and 7, they went to Coach Chuck. And God, he has an incredible studio, Warren Martial Arts. I mean, this guy is trained under the best, and then he became the best, right? We're going to learn the story today because what I bring to you is CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs. And we tell the story of a local business owner, small to medium-sized business, telling the real, nitty gritties of the ups, the downs, and everything that's going on. And with last year, 2020 and the pandemic, I'm sure he's going to tell a little bit about that and how he thrived through that scenario. So excited to have you on, Mr. Coach Chuck. And I was going to say Mr. Chuck, but Coach Chuck. How are you, sir? And thank you so much for
John. I'm doing well. Thank you. And thanks for having me on the podcast today. I really appreciate it and the opportunity to speak on all those things you discussed, going from, I guess if we had this podcast a year ago, it would lose a lot of that COVID content that we might talk about today. From the business being almost 22 years old, you would have gotten 21 years of my thoughts and ideas, and then we would have missed the 1 year of COVID. So we'll definitely touch on that as well, because that's been a challenge, obviously across, I was going to say the country, but the world, and especially with small businesses. I think we are getting hit the worst by the COVID.
Yeah, and that's one of my inspirations. Offline, obviously, we just talked about it, and one of the reasons I started this channel and hopefully giving it a voice to the small to medium-sized business owners. So let's we usually like to start with, hey, our guests giving a little bit of background. You just said 20-something years, which is incredible to be in one business. But give us a little bit of that background, how you kind of grew up, and then kind of walk us to those days of like the inspiration of, man, maybe I should have my own studio and these types of things. So walk us through and take it away.
Sure. Yeah. So my parents, I was very fortunate. I had two great parents that recognized my love and desire for the martial arts, several martial arts, taekwondo, hapkido, karate, kickboxing, just loved it. And they would always, seek out top instruction for me. They paid for my lessons. And I started that when I was 8 or 9 years old in the Kansas City area. We got transferred to Chicago. My dad got transferred in '85, and I quickly found another martial arts school. There were a few along the way. Some weren't a great fit. I don't want to get into any of that negativity. There was a couple that had some litigation issues, and they ended up actually in jail. So I didn't stay at those schools. I found one in high school that I really loved, and that was a lot of my main experience in the martial arts during that time. And I graduated high school, and I just knew that traditional college wasn't for me. I did get my associates from College of DuPage, and I don't regret that decision at all. And I did learn a lot of valuable things there. But then I just did what everyone's supposed to do. I went and got a job, and I kind of put the martial arts by the wayside. And there's just something inside of you when you feel unsettled. There's like a burning. There's a like, man, this isn't what I want to do. And don't get me wrong, it was a great job. I was with Sherwin-Williams, which is a Fortune 500, paint manufacturing and coating industry leader in that business. And I was a store manager for Sherwin-Williams and love the company, still do. But there's just that burning, like I'm missing something. So I, as an adult, started seeking out the martial arts again. And I went back and I joined a school. And the school that I joined, the gentleman that was, which we'll get into that in a few minutes here. I call him a gentleman. That's just my respect, I guess, goes deep with everyone. He quickly asked me if I wanted to be a partner and open a location with him. And I was like, absolutely. Now we're talking about a dream, right? Every entrepreneur, every CEO, every idea starts with a dream, an idea, and move forward with that. So in 1999, we opened, believe it or not, this very location with that partnership. And it was great. It was like, the location's good. It went gangbusters. I learned within about a year and a half that he was stealing from me. So it was a tough time. I ended up during the course of that year and a half with this business, I had started my satellite program, which I know you're familiar with because that's how I met you and your daughters. Um, so I had started that to use it as a feeder program for this business. But when I found out he was stealing, I'm like, I'm out. So I left the partnership. I even left this location and I focused 100% of my time on that satellite program. So I still had my martial arts business. I was still teaching, but it was in uh, places where I have secured those contracts and those relationships, which is schools, private schools, Montessori schools, different childcare centers. And it became very successful during that time of just the satellite program. I had 3 or 4 instructors. At one point, we had 325 students. We've actually put this program into over 50 schools in the area, surrounding Chicagoland area. Well, in 2007, one of my old black belt students called me and said, you know what, your old partner, I won't mention his name, but he left. He had a belt test and he took a bunch of money from all the students, kind of stealing basically. And he didn't show back up on Monday afternoon. So I called the landlord and I said, hey, remember me? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. So I came in, put a fresh coat of paint on it, cleaned it up, and I reopened it, with no partnership, just myself. Renamed it obviously, but the continuity of my business has changed its shape over the years, but me having my martial arts business, has been consistent since March of 1999. So I've been running it now since 2007 until now. What I did with the satellite program is I scaled it back a little bit. And I now teach mostly within about a 10-mile radius of this location. So that is what becomes the feeder program for the business. So I do still teach those. However, and that gets into the COVID discussion, is that there are still no outside vendors allowed in those schools. So that's been the challenge here in the last year or so. But that's kind of, in a maybe a large nutshell, but a nutshell either way, from how I got from 8 years old to knowing I love the martial arts, had a career, decided I've got that burning something that, tells me I want to do something larger and for myself. And I think that us entrepreneurs, we are wired differently. I don't think that, and there's nothing wrong with either type of people, but people that are job people, they want to have a salary. They know how much that is. They create their budget around that salary. They go to work. And when they leave work, they truly leave their work at work. And if you're like me at all, John, I mean, I come home and I'm starting to already think about, what am I going to teach on Monday? What sales calls can I make on Monday? Who do I need to reach out to? Oh, I've got to work on that budget. Yeah, I've got to get some more curriculum for the kid. I never shut it off. That's both good or bad. I do try to find some time, especially for my wife, because she deserves it, where I can kind of shut down my mind and we can just be. And I think that for us, probably our favorite time with doing that would be when we're big into motorcycle riding. So when we're out on the motorcycle, that's when I'm able to really put everything aside. But otherwise, being an entrepreneur, being the owner of a business, it's on like all the time.
24/7. And you know what? And like you said, it's not for everybody, but when you have that burning desire, it also isn't work. It's not a grind to go somewhere. You've actually,
Correct.
developed it as a passion and love. So let's go back a little bit, because I do like to teach on this channel, some of the intricacies, right? We're not as motivational, but I just took a ton of motivation out of what you just said. But I will say this, what was kind of the dynamic, right? So you meet this gentleman, right? You become a student. He then asks you to become a partner. Just to go back a little bit, was there some structure behind it? Did you incorporate that way? Because it seems like you made a quick break once you found out the craziness of what he was really about. So tell us a little about that, and was there that dynamic that you had to I guess unwind some of the corporate side of things?
So yeah, I actually kind of an anticlimactic answer to that. So I won't spend a ton of time. That's a great question though, honestly. I even thought about if I was going to get into it because before I logged on. So when you go into business with people, you need structure, you need paperwork, you need legalities, lawyers, terms. Well, that's probably 99.9% of the time that I would say that is absolutely what you need. I would like to still think, although I would never do this again, that if you go into business with someone who is an 8th degree black belt in Taekwondo, they're from Korea, they're certified, you would think that with what we teach in this business regarding honesty, integrity, there should be an implied amount of honesty going into a situation like that. So the short answer is no. We had no structure. We shook hands. We went out for drinks that night to celebrate the new business venture, and we were off and rolling. So the good news about that, getting to your question, which was a great question, when I confronted him after I found out he was stealing in some interesting ways, but again, don't need to get into all that. Basically, I just said, you're taking money and you're not letting me know about it. And he just put his head down. He didn't argue. I was prepared. I didn't know what direction it was going to go. You go approach an 8th degree black belt and say, hey, you're stealing from me. You know, I was prepared to roll my sleeves up and do what we have to do. It didn't go that way. He just put his head down and said, I'm sorry. And I said, okay, I'm out. And at that point in time, he was into me for about $35,000. So the only thing I did to protect myself, and I have a great landlord, is I went to them and I said, I'm leaving the business. As you know, the lease currently is in my name. Do what you have to do. If he defaults, if you have to, you know, involve me, I mean, I get it. I signed that lease. That's on me. He's like, I would never do that. He's like, I understand him and his personality. He's like, just go do what you need to do and we'll leave you alone. So it's my understanding that after I left and focused on the satellite program solely, they removed my name on the next lease and had him sign it by himself. Thank goodness they did, because in 2007, when my black belt student called me and said, hey, you should go take over the old place, I found out that he was into them for $12,000 in back rent. So when I re-signed a new lease in 07, they didn't even hold me accountable for any of that. We just started fresh, you know, new security deposit and went from there. So yeah, it was a clean break. So some people might say, well, that was really not smart getting into a business without a lot of paperwork, but it really turns out that it was in this case, because unwinding it was a lot easier.
No, and you know what? There's so many nuggets right there of really just understanding, right? And sometimes, a handshake, a word is your honor, right? And all that type of stuff. But we learn the hard way sometimes too. But I think what you did and what the community can learn from is that then you went and addressed one of the people that you did business with, even though you were in a partnership, and you laid it out on the line. And guess what they did? They respected you. So pretty awesome. I'm
Again,
getting
it was
chills.
honesty, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's honesty, and that's how I've always run my business. You know, there's a lot of people out there in the world that are dishonest. I'm not one of them, and I can't run my business that way. I don't have my relationships that way. I think it goes a long way. I think if you look at my reputation in the area of both current but also former students, my retention is very high. Oftentimes people will come to me in my satellite program as a 5 or a 6-year-old, like your daughters did, and I end up losing them as a student when they come in to say goodbye while they are college bound. And the kids will come in on their semester breaks and keep me updated on, you know, how their first semester of college went. And this is not just 1 or 2 students I'm talking about. I literally have like a group of now these grown adults that come back and visit me. And it's like, man, I'm getting old, because, you know, doing this for 22 years, and these kids were 6, 7 years old, and now they're going to college, and some of them are even, you know, older or married or whatever. So but that, I think, getting back to the whole point about honesty, I think I just run my business. My heart is on my sleeve, kind of like, I don't, my dad has always described me as that. Whenever he introduces me, he says, you know what, this is my son, Chuck. And just so you know, what you see is what you get. This is, you know, there's no pretense here. So I think that's just, it goes a long way in a small, not just a service business, but this is a very personalized service business. And I think so my personality just kind of lends itself to that.
No, and I saw it, right. And that's one of the things Go for CO community is, you have a small business, you better own it. You better be there. You better, be about it, and you better have that passion, right? Or it's just not going to work, right? And especially
Absolutely.
a business like yours where it's very personal. It's about teaching and you're transferring your talents, transferring your knowledge to the kids, to the teenagers, to the grownups, right? And really cool. So let's get in a little bit about the marketing, right? It seems like to me, from what I'm deducing, you've had this feeder system that's created this kind of system, and it brings you the talent to then come to your retail store, your location, your studio. So tell us a little about that, and then also tell us, kind of what's happened recently, and how you've had to pivot, because I want to have people learn. I mean, you're obviously still in business, which thank God, so what did you think about that satellite side of things? How did you market that? And then what were some of the techniques that then you pulled some of that talent and brought it over to your studio?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the satellite program, as I said, I started it years ago, back in 2000, to try to use it with my partnership. But either fortunately or unfortunately, he never received any of the benefit from it, because basically once I left him, I took my satellite program and just went, off and running. I developed an age appropriate, child friendly program for the kids. But I know you asked more about marketing and things like that. So getting into that, it was really a grassroots approach, to be honest with you. At the time, I got a hold of the state of Illinois listing for childcare centers, and I just started getting on the phone and calling. And, hey, this is Coach Chuck. I'm with Martial Arts in Motion. We teach a positive program for kids, and it's very safe. And could I come in and give you a free demo? And that was pretty much, I'm sure I was a little more refined, per each phone call, but that was the gist of what I did. I would go in, they would give me an area or a space, clear it out. I'd have all my kids. I would do a quick little demo, get the kids excited to punch and kick my targets and paddles, and then send them home with brochures. And then that would evolve, because, if you do a demo with a child at 11 o'clock in the morning, they don't even see their parents until 6 p.m. at pickup time. A lot has happened in their day from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. And I don't have access to the parents. It's not like these schools would just give me, an email listing or something and say, here, blast our parents. So I developed a sticker that goes on the child's shirt, and it says, I did martial arts today with Coach Chuck and I had fun. For more information, visit the website. Wow. So these kids would wear this sticker all day long, and then finally get picked up, go home. They're eating dinner, doing whatever they're doing. And then the mom and dad says, what is that on your shirt? Well, it's a Coach Chuck sticker. And that also helped to propel that. After a couple of years of my profit lines being a little flat, I'm like, man, I need something else. I got to get in front of the parents. I know all these kids, hundreds of them, but where are the parents? How do I meet John and Tracy? How does that happen? So one of my students said, you should do something like, how dance studios do like a dance recital. And I'm like, yeah, like a showcase. So I would teach the whole school year in all of these schools, Montessori schools, daycares, childcare centers. And then at the end of the year, have the big Martial Arts in Motion showcase. Don't miss it. And I would split the schools up a little bit so we didn't have too many people in here at a time, but we'd start having an end of the year showcase. And that's where I did meet you. Actually, I remember at one of our showcases is when I finally met you. I had already known the girls for a while. And so all the parents get to come in and we get to show off firsthand in front of the parents. This is what your child has been learning for the whole school year. And the interaction between Coach Chuck and the kids, and just make it exciting. During those, the kids would all break a board, and they get to take that board home with them. So then, of course, now that I have their information, then I can blast out again, either one-on-one, like a grassroots. I'm kind of very hands-on that way, and invite people, like, now you should come to the studio. So then that completes the full cycle of where a child has maybe started with me at the age of 4 or 5. Once they age out of the satellite program, I bring them to the studio. I still get business though from drive-by or internet or word of mouth. So there are some kids here that did not come through my satellite program, but that program is very, very powerful because anytime I bow in, we start a class, I look at the attendance that day, and I would say over 50% of my students came out of that satellite program,
Wow.
which brings me to what you asked. When you said pivot, all I could think about is the show Friends with Ross and the couch and the stairway. Pivot. So March of 2020, man, I got my first phone call from the first center that said, hey, we're going to hold off on our vendors, maybe a week or two. Let's just kind of see where this thing goes. And I'm like, I know where this is headed. By the end of the day, I had my second phone call from another one of my Montessori schools. Matter of fact, your daughter's school was the first one to call me and say, hey, so they were very proactive in the beginning about that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was that weekend of the Friday, the 13th, 14, 15. By the end of the weekend, of course, nationwide, plus, Governor Pritzker, we were on a full-blown stay-at-home order by then. So it was implied at that point, there are no more vendor programs at all. And I just felt, it was almost like in Apollo 13, you reach that dark side of the moon and you lose all radio contact. There I was at home. There's no classes. I can't go to any of my schools where I teach. And you're going to laugh at me here. I'm just not a real big tech guy, but my laptop that I use for all my operations and my spreadsheets was an old like Windows 7. It's not even supported. It would not be able to run a Zoom meeting to save my life. So here I sit in my house going, what am I going to do? So pivot. I came in here with my phone and a tripod, and I just recorded a quick message to the kids. And I'm like, miss you guys. This is tough. Hang in there. Got some emails out to the parents, and I was just like, look, we've been through a lot together as a family. We need to stick together as a family. I was trying to address the issues at this point that tuition is still rolling, and yet I'm not providing a service. What do we do with that? Because again, I'm very fair, very honest. So I did, I had an idea, and I just rolled out a program, and I just let everyone know, if you keep paying your tuition, within reason, if we're closed for any amount of time, obviously we're going to shut that down. But I will be getting you on the back end in terms of credits, freebies, things that I can maybe control later on down the line when I'm back on my feet, if you help keep this thing afloat now. So just to be clear though, with that satellite program, I had cut off everybody's auto pay, their subscription right away, so that they weren't paying anymore, because those classes were done and still have been done.
Yeah.
With the studio kids, a lot of them kept paying. Some of them, man, bless them. Some of them have paid their full tuition amount this entire pandemic. I did come up with a online rate. It was a discounted rate for the Zoom classes. Since it's not in person, it was definitely cheaper. And I gave them the choice. I said, you can start paying this discounted rate, or you can keep paying your full amount. If you haven't had a change or any hardship, it's kind of what makes the whole world go around. I try to pay it forward too. In fact, my hairstylist that you and I were talking about the other day, I had a haircut scheduled that same week, and I wasn't going to get my haircut. I'm like, there's some crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'm not going to go. I showed up at her office and I paid her for my haircut because I knew she couldn't fill it in that short amount of time. And I'm like, here, take this. And she's like, what? Why? And I'm like, just take it. I'm like, I'll see you in the future, and we'll figure it all out. So luckily, a lot of my families have done the same thing. They kept paying, and I was able to compensate them down the line. When we had our first post-pandemic belt testing, I actually didn't charge for it. I said, you can all test for free. So I took on that expense. I ordered all the belts. I conducted the belt testing, and they were all able to test for free. So they got a little bit of a, value add for them supporting us back in March and April. Then I started doing private lessons online. They were short. They were 15 to 20 minutes, but I didn't charge for those. And again, I emailed them out and said, these are just some value adds because you guys are helping me. I promised I would help you. So basically throughout the year, I've unrolled a program where I was able to give back to them so that nobody looked back and thought, man, Coach Chuck, took our money and didn't provide something. The other thing I did do from a tech standpoint, just for communication purposes, was I did get in touch with my web designer, and I had them put my Warden Martial Arts Facebook page directly on the homepage of my website,
Mm,
so that I could get immediate updates out. If they wanted to just go to the website, even if they don't have a Facebook, you can go to wardenmartialarts.com, and right there on the homepage is the Facebook Warden Martial Art page. So I could literally update them. So then I started making videos. I'm kind of skipping around a little bit, getting back to that real dark beginning time, just those 2 weeks of March, April, like, we're closed. I was making instructional videos that were not interactive. They were just me on a video, and then I would post it to my Facebook page. And I told the kids, follow these, lesson plans. And then once we got a new computer, got Zoom set up, that was the huge pivot. Like, okay, now we're back, we're live. And man, those first couple of nights, I mean, I had about 40 some kids in one Zoom session that first night. And I'm like, okay, we're going to add more classes, because even though you can technically have a Zoom meeting or a webinar with 1,000 people, I want to interact with my students. Right now, I'm talking to just you, so this is how we are. But during a typical class, I'm like this, I'm looking down, and yeah, that's good. Do that. Yeah, that looks great. No, change your stance. And then I got to back up and show them what to do and how to do their hands. But I love it. I've actually grown to like that format. It may even be something moving on that I keep. It may be limited, but some form of Zoom classes, continuing. I could also reach people, out of state, people that are farther away or whatever, in a whole new
for sure.
market by continuing a Zoom class.
I love it. I love it, man. I mean, look, what an incredible journey of the last 9, 10 months, and going up to a year now soon. Pivoting is so crucial. Being a business owner, you're wearing all the hats. You were thinking about how you market. What's the source going to come from? The income. Where's the cash flow coming? So one thing to think about. We never kind of dived into this, but was there any like big capital intensiveness that you had? Did you ever have to take out any loans? Did you have an investor in the business? Obviously, as you grow, as you scale, there are some needs. Obviously, you've got a beautiful background. Those things cost money. Obviously, there's probably some reserves that you did for this new upgrade of your computer and everything. But any of those aspects that you can share with us as well.
So luckily, martial arts business is not one of the more costly businesses to open. If you start talking about opening a restaurant, all the kitchen, supplies, cooking, the utensil, I mean, that's an expensive business. For martial arts, you find a new strip mall, you've got what they call a vanilla box. You do a quick build out, order some mats. So I did borrow some money in the beginning, but to be honest, it was actually family, because it was not a dollar amount that was so, undoable. It was, actually, no, I take that back. I'm sorry. I'm skipping around a little bit. Yes, I actually took out a home equity loan in 1999. I borrowed against my house, which, again, business 101, probably shouldn't do that. I would normally advise people, don't link your business, but many people have a HELOC or a home equity line of credit anyway and don't have a business. So I just thought, what, if the business doesn't work, you just got to keep making that mortgage payment. That's your downside. So yeah, I'm sorry, I had to backtrack there. I forgot that I did take out a home equity loan in the beginning and built the business with that partner. And that's where, when I say that he was into me for $35,000, by the time I found out he was stealing and I left, which means I left my mirrors here, I left my mats, I left my sign, I left everything here. So my 30,000 original investment was gone. And then another 5,000 of just trickle money that had gone to him over the year and a half. So just gone. And there I was with my second mortgage. So yeah, that was tough. And when I mentioned borrowing money from a family member, yeah, actually, later on, when I did re-sign back in 07, and then the landlord said, well, this guy owes us 12 grand in rent. And I'm like, well, I don't have that kind of dough right now. They just wanted another security deposit. And so we were, again, it was a tough time. If you remember 2007, we were starting to enter the housing market, crash and that recession. And so things were tight back then. And I went to, as I used to joke, the first American bank of dad and borrowed, a couple grand, not a lot of money. And did that way. So again, when I say grassroots, my business has all pretty much been, pretty hands-on, pretty simple. And there wasn't, luckily, a lot of capital that needed to be invested. Getting to 2020 and COVID, I did, as did many Americans, I did apply for the SBA's PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, and I did receive that, and that was very helpful. Getting through last summer. We're down probably. We have about 1/3 of the amount of students that we had last March. So we're down, 2/3 of our revenue. And because I do love my landlords, we have not missed a rent payment. Some people keep telling me, hey, why don't you work with your landlord or have them? I'm like, you know what? Things can trickle down to the little guy, but if enough of us try to get freebies, the stuff's going to trickle up as well. And if they can't make the payments on the buildings and pay the taxes on the buildings, we're not going to have a strip mall to have a business out of or whatever. So I try to be a team player both ways as much as I can. But getting back to your question, yeah. So basically in the beginning was a home equity loan, and then a little bit of borrowing in the middle during the housing crisis. And then this year with the SBA PPP loan. So,
wow. Well, and you just said what a great point, right? As a small business owner, you can't just think about yourself, can't think about just your own revenue. You've got to think about the location that you're at, the colleague, maybe the other business owners. I know as a strip mall, you've got some other business owners. You got a hairstylist next to you, I believe, and so some insurance people, a food liquor place, I believe, and if I recall correctly. And it seems like you've been a leader, right? I'm sure you guys are all asking each other, are you paying? Or are you paying? So it's an incredible feat that you were able to do that, and obviously what a testament to the way that you do business. So look, we've talked about the marketing and how you kind of set up the operation to have a satellite feeder. You shared some of the ways that you kind of invested in your business and looked at kind of the way that you grew that side of things and went through the ups and downs of these economic downturns. So let's go into operations, right? You think about being a business owner, a CEO, a founder. Well, usually when it's a solopreneur, when you go from employee to sole proprietor and you haven't really gone to business owner yet, you're wearing all the hats. So tell us a little bit about, being Coach Chuck, doing what you love, but then also running the business from an outside perspective. Give us a little bit of insight of working on your business instead of working in your business.
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's probably two jobs I have here, even though there's multiple hats. When I first asked my mom back in 1999, what do you think about me teaching martial arts? And she said two things to me. One, she said, once you step on the other side of the cash register, it's going to change your martial arts experience forever, for the rest of your life. You're no longer a student that gets, you are now, Master Chuck, Coach Chuck. She said, but the second thing I'll tell you is, she says, follow your heart and the money will come. And that was a direct quote. And I sometimes have to remind myself of that. So getting to your question, operations, the kids, teaching, and yes, the adults. We do have all ages here, as you've pointed out a couple of times. We have adult students as well. And I love teaching. I think my favorite thing is to show something and they get it. And you're like, ha ha, you did it. I love that. That's the moment for me. So that's a role, that's operations, and I don't feel like I'm working. Oftentimes I'm in my most happiest of places when I'm in front of a group of 15 to 20 students and I'm teaching. That's just when I'm in my sweet spot. Mm-hmm. So being the sole owner, sole proprietorship, you've got the other part of the job, and that's when you're not in it, when you're not teaching, what are you doing? Well, you're managing your P&L, you're managing your budget, you're you're figuring out and anticipating the market. Like, hey, that one school isn't doing very well. I might have to replace that class. Maybe I should do some sales calls and try to, get some more, contracts in the pipeline. So in the future, I can add some more satellite classes. Um, trying to find other areas to improve. Like when I told you we were doing okay in the satellite program, trying to, transition those children or those students to the studio. But once we had the showcase, that went, a lot larger than at that point in time. So that was just one of those things we had to adapt to and create. And then that, gave us a good result from that. So there are times that you're not in that class teaching in the zone saying, well, this is my passion. I think that's a lot of the mistake that business owners will have and have had is if they have a passion for something and they think, I'm going to open up my business because I love to, and insert whatever activity here, I love whatever, cooking. So they want to open up some kind of a restaurant or catering business, and that's great. They're a really good cook and they love cooking. But what they don't realize is someone's got to make sales calls. Someone's got to close deals. Someone's got to balance the books, bring the money in, figure out how to pay the bills. I laugh at myself, honestly, every couple of weeks when I take a garbage bag and throw it over my shoulder and take it out, because I don't pay for a dumpster service here. So I take out my own garbage and take it home by the curb. And I laugh at myself because that's such a small business thing to do. And people say, oh, you own your own business. That must be glamorous. Oh yeah, it's glamorous when I'm in front of, 50 people teaching. But when I'm dragging a black hefty bag out to the parking lot,
I love it.
the glamour's out the window. So it's all of those other things that operationally, as a business owner, you have to account for all that.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, no, you know what? Everybody wants to be in the lights, but nobody wants to do the work that it takes to get in the lights, right?
So true. So true.
It's a big, big deal. Nobody remembers that you've probably been on your hands and knees scrubbing some of those mats. You've probably been Windexing at late night. You're getting ready for a showcase. You're putting all the flower, the plants like you had behind you in the right place, dusting them off. So, how many parents are coming? Okay, how many seats do I have? That type of stuff. It's just all the nuances of really owning a service really type based business.
Absolutely.
And a business in general. So, well, Coach Chuck, I know that we have some time constraints, but I probably can go another 2 hours with you. So I do want to, share with you, obviously in the next 6 months, we want to reconnect with you at the Go for CEO channel. We want to start building tribes behind your brand, tribes behind, maybe commenting and liking, this channel and liking the video itself. But the way that we end usually our interviews is that we go through the model, right? C is for client experience. E is for employee engagement, and O is for operational excellence. So if you could share with us just that value proposition that you feel that, Warden Martial Arts Studio brings to the table about client experience.
So with that, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier in terms of, I think the retention speaks for itself. So what I want when somebody joins here is I want the child to be comfortable, the student to be comfortable. Sometimes people come to me with, maybe even a low self-esteem, and they're like, I'm afraid to even go on the mat. And I want to make them comfortable. I want the parents to trust me. Like, hey, I'm dropping off Billy or Susie or whoever, and I'll be back in 45 minutes. They trust me with their child. That's huge to me. I don't take that lightly. I charge a fair price. If you look into a lot of my competitors, I'm actually on the lower end. Probably shouldn't be, but I am. Fair price, fun program, and a long-term relationship. I don't look at it and say, oh, these are my customers. No. These are my families. And they make up the Warden Martial Arts family. So that client experience for me is really everything. And that's what drives the business. And the amount of people that I get calls word of mouth, hey, listen, we heard about you from so-and-so is incredible. So I think for me, it's easy because I just be myself. And I think people recognize that. And then I think that's just the client experience they end up having is that atmosphere that I create here, which is a very family oriented atmosphere. So that's why I think the longevity is there with a lot of these students.
And I can attest, I will say, Go for CO community as an actual client that my daughters went. My oldest one had some issues when she was really young and some confidence through not only this part, right, becoming that satellite client, and then went into the studio. You could see the transformation. Now, my middle one, she was kind of a jokester. Like she wanted to go at it. She still jokes around and kicks me in the leg once in a while. So
I do
she's gotten
remember.
into some other, she's gotten into dance and gymnastics, but I know that she'll be coming back one of
Sure.
these days. So, but excited to have that. Thank you so much for that really great description of client experience. So I know we didn't get too much of the employee engagement. I know as a solopreneur it can be kind of hard. I mean, you are the brains, the dream of it, the guy that does a lot of things. Is there anything that you could share? Do you have some top level just teachers? How are you kind of handling that dynamic? If you would talk about a little bit about employee engagement.
Sure. Yeah. At any given point in time, I've had anywhere from, 3 to 5 instructors.
Hmm.
Um, and these are again long-term relationships, because I mean, to get to black belt level, it's not someone I've just known overnight. It's somebody that, I've known them a long time, mentored them, developed their skills, teaching skills. Maybe start out by giving them 10 minutes of a class, say, here, I'm going to go in my office or whatever, and why don't you just run through some basics just to get comfortable. And then it becomes to the point where it's a key holder situation, and it's okay, I trust you with the key, you're part of the business, welcome. And I still have right now, we lost one of our main instructors. He moved out of state. um, he was the most flexible scheduled one, so he was the one that really gave a lot more freedom. But all of my instructors are fantastic, and it allows for, as being the owner, to get away, take a weekend or something, take a trip, and you know that the school is being handled. I always joke around. I really don't like managing people, so to speak. Like, I don't ever want to have a role where I just manage 50 people. I will, and I would, but I don't, that's not my desire. And I think the reason is because I am an entrepreneur. It's like, I know what needs to be done. And I guess I expect everyone around me to know what needs to be done. As long as you've been clear about what the expectation is, I don't want to micromanage people. I don't want to, hey, why weren't you sitting, at your desk at, 8:05 this morning when I walked down through all the cubicles? If you got to walk through and check your people at 8:05 and walk back through at 5 p.m. and check, then you've got the wrong people, I think, when it
Mhm.
comes to management. So yeah, I don't have a lot to say on employee management because it's a unique business. Like you said, I'm the owner, but yes, we do have 4 or 5 instructors, and I just try to, I kind of let them do their thing. I tell them, you teach the class, make sure you cover these basics, but then beyond that, put your own flair on it. Be creative. I trust you, and that's really my style of management here with those instructors, and they've been around a long time. So again, good retention. My longest instructor just tested for 3rd-degree black belt actually 2 weeks ago, and he's been with me since 2007.
Mhm.
So, and he still is on the list of instructors that I can call and be like, hey, can you handle class on Saturday or whatever? So,
No,
yeah, good experience with that.
you described it very well at the end there, just some of the things that you empower, right? You give that next power level to them, right? To be leaders within your organization and take a step back. And so you don't have to micromanage them. But, by the simple instruction that you got them to black belt, it would seem that you actually had that hand in them becoming leaders in now your studio. So really awesome stuff. So last one is operational excellence. And I know that you kind of went through some of that as well, but what would you say is maybe 30 seconds of that value add of how you kind of operate your business to make sure, I mean, obviously top line revenue to drop by 2/3 is no easy task. But you are still in business. It's gotta be something about operations. You've gone in lean and mean, maybe. I don't know if you could share just 30 seconds of how your operational excellence has kept you in business through these, ups and downs.
Yep, definitely had to trim the fat right away. I mean, there were some budget things that were just cut immediately. Pivot, which you mentioned that word earlier in our meeting today, and I think that's so important. We just had to change some things. So obviously spending was huge. Try to maximize revenue where we can, whether it be some merchandising. I've rolled out a new program with some weapons that the kids are loving. We're actually using the nunchucks, but we're actually calling them fun chucks with Master Chuck. So, you're putting those out to the clients, they're purchasing them. Number one, you're getting revenue from that purchase, but then, now the kids have something to look forward to. I make them earn it though. Like during a regular Zoom class, we're going to run through all of our basics first before I say, go grab your fun chucks, and we'll spend the last 5 minutes of class swinging these things around. And they're foam padded, by the way. They're the safe ones. So just little things like that yeah, you stop and go, okay, now what? Because the satellite program still hasn't come back. I think you had asked a question earlier, and in one of my answers, I didn't get to this part about keeping relationships up and keeping in contact. I am still in direct contact with every one of the directors at every school where I teach and where we hold contracts. And we're just, closely monitoring, the country, the CDC, obviously, the severity of COVID and the pandemic. And we want everyone to be safe, but they also recognize like we've got to get some of our vendor programs back to work. That's part of our whole school. They market that, hey, not only will we have your child all day, but during that day, Coach Chuck's going to come in and teach your children. So they would like to get back as well. Actually, 2 days ago, I received an email from one of our directors, one of our Montessori schools. And she just emailed and said, hey, I was just thinking about you. We cannot have vendors back in yet. She said, but our building is back up to 25 to 30 students. Would you like to drop off some literature? Because I don't mind blasting it out to our families in their Friday folders. And maybe you can get some more studio or Zoom business that way. And that just meant the world to me, because this is somebody that personally, they stand nothing to gain from that, because that's not like having me back in their building. It's just, hey, listen, we know you're probably hurting. Do you want to do this? And so stuff like that with, again, those relationships. Some of these schools where I've been teaching, I have been there as long as 18 years. I've seen directors come and go at some of them, because in that business, there is sometimes a high turnover rate. But again, with the people that I deal with right now, it seems like the same directors, the same people in charge that I've known for 10, 15, and in some cases 18, 19 years at the same school. So in the last year, like you said, just some operational things, budget cuts, try to maximize revenue where you can, hunker down, and man, just try to stay positive. I was actually I had a quote here. I was gonna read it, and I know you said you don't like to get too inspirational in these podcasts, but I can't help but to be that way.
No, I love
So
it.
what I would leave other business owners with would be this. This is a quote, Michael Jordan. Okay. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. It's missed. I've lost almost 300 games. I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. If you focus on the negatives, if you focus on how many shots you missed, how many sales calls, they say, yeah, we don't really want a karate program in our, fine, next. You just got to move on. If you focus on all that stuff, you're going to get bogged down. And the other interesting thought, and I promised myself I would say this, I know we're wrapping up time, but I promised myself I would share this. I recently had a thought, and I thought to myself, my gosh, thank goodness I didn't focus on this in the 22 years. I wrote a list of every major obstacle that I have had to go through since 1999 with the business. Partner stealing from me, this, that, going through a divorce. I had some health issues early on. The housing market crisis in 2007, 8, 9, that whole recession didn't really come out of that till kind of starting 2011. A couple of injuries. My leg was, whatever. It was a whole list. And then you can also include in there how many centers didn't want my program any longer, or how many people said no. If you would have traveled back in time using a DeLorean with your flux capacitor and you showed me this list back in 99, I never would have started the business. My point to saying that is, I don't want people to point out to me when you're starting something and you're excited and you have that dream, that burn, that fire, don't, Captain Obvious, don't tell me all the things that could go wrong. I'm aware of what could go wrong, but if we made a list of what Michael Jordan failed at, what I just read to you, he's got to be the worst basketball player of all time. He's missed 8,000 shots. He's lost 300 games, but that's just focusing on the wrong end of it. So that's my little, I know we promised not to get inspirational, but that's my little 2 seconds of, got to focus on the positive. You got to stay on that side of it. And, I now look forward and say to myself, there's going to be a future list of obstacles, and I'm going to add COVID to that list as well. But I don't want to know what that list is. I don't want to see it ahead of time. I don't want to focus on it. I don't want to know. We'll address those things as they come.
Hey, well, you're giving me an inspiration to have a Go for CO speaking channel, meaning having guys like you share that type of scenario, right? Another business that you may not even be thinking about, but I can only share with you from what I just experienced right now in the last 2 minutes is that, gosh, you should be speaking, buddy. So,
I would love to speak. I actually, I wouldn't know how to monetize that right now, but if somebody said, hey, you are going to be, Tony Robbins, or, just motivate people, it's what I do. I mean, my entire career has been based on helping people to set goals and then helping people reach those goals.
Yep.
And if I was negative, Debbie Downer, negative Nelly, what do you want to call it? I wouldn't be able to portray to these people, here's what you need to do. We coach them and mentor them. I'd be all stuck in the mud and down on everything. So I have to put those things aside. When I log on Zoom and my kids, and I'm like, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm only making 1/3 of our revenue right now. Like, this is tough. But I got to just, because then it's back to operations mode. And the kids don't care how I pay the bills or how I keep the lights on. They want to see Master Chuck. And last comment I'm going to make, and this is only unique to my business and not every business probably that you have on the channel, but mine has to do greatly with children. And I just want to say, these kids, all of them, not even just in my program, have been absolute rock stars. I told all my kids last summer that they were the real heroes of this pandemic. They said to stay home, save lives. Kids all stayed home. They can't see their friends. They can't go out. They can't go to school. Every activity is on Zoom. Half these kids know how to operate Zoom better than I do. Hey, Master Chuck, just do the breakout rooms. You can. I'm like, okay, Sahil, thank you. And these kids have been amazing. I can't imagine anything like this. I remember in the 80s being talked to about the Cold War and how that was kind of scary. And then of course we had our shuttle explosion with the Challenger. 9/11 of course was tough, but we were adults at that point. But I just don't know what these kids have had to go through. It's been tough on us grown-ups, but the kids, man, my heart goes out to these guys, all the little guys and gals. They've just been really brought it together as a team player and made this whole thing work for them and the schools and education, martial arts, everything. So just wanted to give a shout out to all the kids.
No, I love it, man. Lessons learned, vice versa, right?
Yes.
You picked up a lot from them, and gosh, I mean, throughout the years, we could probably not again spend another 3-4 hours just on stories that you probably have, like a great teacher that influenced them, maybe at scholastic school. You've been that teacher of life as well, right? That outside teacher. So awesome, Coach Chuck. Hey, thank you so much for coming on board. I do want to make sure that people know how to get to you. So website, LinkedIn, Instagram, where are you at? What are your Zoom class? I mean, share a little bit about that. And then obviously we'll put it into the description of every platform that we put out there.
Yeah, to keep it simple and not too lengthy on time, which I can tend to be, is the website, wardenmartialarts.com, WARDEN. You see right there on the wall, wardenmartialarts.com. There's a contact me button there. We are currently offering Zoom classes, and we have slowly begun to open up the in-person, very safe, added sanitizing. The kids have to sanitize on the way in. They have to wear a mask. It's very safe. We've had people back in studio since July when we went into phase 4 last summer. Obviously, we had a little brief fallback in the fall around the holidays, but basically we're back, and I've added more classes actually. So I promised all the students that as we grow in numbers, to try to keep it safe, we'll add more classes, and that's what we've done so far. So yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, get in touch with me, wardenmartialarts.com. And then there is a Facebook page, but now that we're kind of back doing our thing, I don't manage the Facebook page as much, I don't think. So really the best way is the website. But it is, if you did do Facebook, it's the Warden Martial Arts on Facebook. So,
And then phone number, if you don't mind.
yeah, sure. The business line is 630-236-1122. So 236-1122.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I'm doing this channel. All right. Something came over me during the pandemic as well. I actually have had this channel, as far as subscribed myself. I got the Go for CEO name. I got the Go for CEO website for 3 years and did nothing. Right. I'd been in my own business for some other things. And, now I'm back into some business banking and all this stuff. But this is just really why I'm interviewing a guy like Coach Chuck, a guy that's gone 19, 20 years, just within his passion, but also becoming a real entrepreneur and business owners, the integrity that he's shown, incredible. So I hope you reach out. I hope you smash that like button, and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment for Coach Chuck. I'm sure I'll share with him, hey, Coach Chuck, somebody left a message for you, and he'll interact with you. So, and exciting too, in 6 months, Coach Chuck, we're going to be back with you, and letting the tribe that's going to grow from this community to follow the Warden Martial Arts School and what you're all about. So thank you so much. I know you have some personal plans that you got to get to. Thank you again for coming on board, and I appreciate you being on the Go for CEO channel.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. I do look forward to coming back. I would love to come back on the channel, check in every 6 months if that's a theme you do, with checking in with progress and businesses and things like that. So you let me know, and I'll come back on and see you. And love the channel so far. I've been watching a few of your podcasts, and I can see your passion on this as well. So that kind of speaks to a little bit of what I talked about today and with what you're doing. So that's great. Keep it up. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, let's